Business running as usual under the shadows of forces. This after Gorkha Janamukti Morcha has given out a call for complete shutdown.
Tourist hotspot Darjeeling slowly limps back to normalcy even as the standoff between Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee and the Gorkha Janamukti Morcha intensifies. It will be the biggest farm loan waiver ever, says Maharashtra government. Devendra Fadnavis sets up a joint committee to decide the parameters of who will get the waiver and who will not. Mira now breaks it down for you. Congress complicity in Madhya Pradesh exposed. 3 Congress leaders have been caught on camera now inciting violence. Will the party act against them? Trouble mounts for actor Sanjay Dutt. The Bombay High Court today asked the Maharashtra government to justify its decision to grant the actor an early release from prison. And cow vigilantes strike again, assault a truck driver and vandalize 5 trucks on the National Highway 15 over suspicion of cow smuggling. Investigations reveal all 5 trucks had all the requisite documents to transport cows between Jaisalmer and Tamil Nadu. Is our city rain ready? As per the Mumbai civic body's deadline to fix the city nears to just 3 days from now. Mirror now brings you a status report across the city. 67 roads still to be fixed. The monsoons are here. The work is not done. Bangalore stinks again. Over 4,000 sanitation workers are on an indefinite strike demanding regularization of their services. In the meantime, garbage piles up in the city. Panama-based cargo vessel crashes into an Indian fishing boat off the Kochi coast, capsizing it, killing 3 fishermen. The captain and other crew members taken into custody. And US President Donald Trump invites Prime Minister Narendra Modi for bilateral talks in Washington on the 25th of June and the 26th of June. This will be Modi's first trip to the US under Trump's administration. And Rafael Nadal scripts history in the final with his win of the 10th French Open title. The Spaniard beat the world number 3 in straight sets to win his 15th Grand Slam title overall. And Anil Kumble will remain as coach of the Indian cricket team until the West Indies series. BCCI squashes reports of an alleged rift between the coach and captain Virat Kohli.
नवंबर 2016 की रात्रि को 12 बजे से वर्तमान में जारी 500 रुपये और 1000 रुपये के करेंसी नोट लीगल टेंडर नहीं रहेंगे।
From last 7 months, loss of job has been gone. And the traders and the market person are saying that because of cash flow, less cash flow, they are facing lots of problem. And this is all because of demonetization.
जब से नोटबंदी हुई उस टाइम से एक्चुअली जो भी काम थोड़ा बहुत हम लोग कर भी रहे हैं बाहर किसी पार्टी का या कस्टमर का, एक्चुअली कस्टमर भी काम लेके आ नहीं पा रहा है। और दूसरी बात ये जो बाहर का भी हम लोग कुछ पार्टी का काम कर रहे हैं तो मतलब अभी कैश दे नहीं पा रहा है वो।
नोटबंदी के बाद से सर हमारा जो पैसा था ना मार्केट में सर वो पैसा अटक गया और ऊपर से जो माल आने वाला था ना बन के कोई ऑर्डर ही नहीं आ रहा है।
2000 का नोट चला दिया, 50 रुपए की 100 रुपए की सौदा लेता है इंसान, तो हम 1950 रुपया या 1950 रुपये कहाँ से दें? तो इससे मारे फिरते हैं, दुकानदारों के पास जाते हैं, बोले हमारे पास नहीं है छुट्टा, तो ग्राहक चला जाता है, हम ऐसे खड़े ले जाते हैं, माल है वो दागी बनती है हमारी।
ये कहा गया था कि काला धन पे अंकुश लगेगा, काले धन पे हम लगाम कसेंगे, मगर ऐसा लग रहा है कि यहाँ व्यापार पे लगाम कसा जा रहा है, मजदूर तबके पे लगाम कसी जा रही है।
जब से ये नोटबंदी हुई है ना, इसके बाद से तो मेरे आधे काम हो गए हैं और काम का पोजीशन ये है कि काम मार्केट में तो है ही नहीं और पैसे भी नहीं है।
हम लोग रोज़ अगर एक 10 जोड़ी बना के लेके जाते हैं, एक 2000 हम लोग को मिल जाता है। उस 2000 में 1500 रुपये मटेरियल के लिए रखते हैं और 500 रुपये में हमारा घर, हमारा बच्चों का फीस वो होता है, तो हम लोग ATM पेटीएम कहाँ से इस्तेमाल करेंगे।
There are several indicators we must talk about. The fact that it has been over 6 months since the massive demonetization move. Question we're asking is very, very simple. Has demonetization hit us hard? Has demonetization hit us hard? That's the question we're asking this evening. And we're doing a clear debate. Every guest will have the option, will have 2 minutes to make an opening statement, after which there will be a buzzer that will go off. This is to ensure that everybody gets equal time to make their arguments on the channel this evening. Joining me, Gopal Krishna Agarwal, National Spokesperson of the BJP, Priyanka Chaturvedi, National Spokesperson of the Congress Party, Santosh Mehrotra is a noted economist, Syed Furqan is a businessman and a trader. He's a member of the Mumbai Central Market. Ashwini Kakar, CEO of Mercury Travels, brings in also a businessman's voice. Chandrashekhar Naini is a senior expert in economics and finance, I beg your pardon. And Pragnesh Rai is the owner of SamBar and Pub, who will also bring in the voice of the restaurateurs who claim to suffer greatly. I'm going to start with Gopal Krishna Agarwal. Gopal Krishna Agarwal, has demonetization hit us hard? Your time starts now.
Actually, demonetization was definitely what has hurt the people was the liquidity crunch, and that liquidity crunch was lasted only till December. It was November, December, and by January the economy was remonetized. So I don't think there is any issue after once the remonetization has taken place. Majority of the liquidity crunch which was being faced by the people have been remonetized. The thing is, there was a short-term pain and the long-term gain. That is what we have to focus now on. Demonetization will create a long-term gain for the economy. Ultimately, if we have to implement GST is a big ticket reforms that the country has seen after so many years. That will create a big national agriculture market, benefit the farmers, so reduce the indirect taxes, bring more tax revenue collection, increase compliance by the people, and more money resources to the government. But GST could not have been implemented if all transactions did not pass. Financial transaction, business transaction would not have passed through the banking channel. Therefore, demonetization was one of the important precursor to creating a successful ecosystem for implementation of GST. That's one important thing. It's the long-term gain that we will have. Second thing is, with digital economy, the cost of transaction in the economy will go down substantially. We had done one study. At present, a banking transaction, if a person goes physically, he has to spend 80 rupees per transaction. That cost is reduced to less than 60 paisa if that transaction happens through a banking channel. The third important thing is, lot of money in the liquid cash was used by the people to hold black money. That is also being
Okay, Gopal Krishna Agarwal, demonetization, it was an important precursor to GDP. All right.
Etc. They have to.
GST. Demonetization was an important precursor to GST. That's Gopal Krishna Agarwal's argument. I just want to point out to our audience, India's GDP growth has dropped 1.5%. Agriculture has dropped a little over 1%. Manufacturing has come down almost 3%. Electricity, gas, water supply down 1%. Construction down 6%, it's now in the negative. Services down 1.4%. Trade, hotels, transport is down nearly 2%. Real estate is down about 1.1%. These are all growth figures right now that are coming in. Priyanka Chaturvedi of the Congress. Demonetization was an important precursor to GST. Do you agree? Do you believe demonetization hit us hard?
No, of course it hit us hard. Considering how they've been changing their goalposts ever since demonetization was announced by the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister spoke about 3 goals that he had. was eradicating black money, was eradicating, dubious currency, was eradicating terrorism. We haven't seen anything happen. Then during the UP campaign, we heard of how, demonetization has helped India become a digital economy. Again, if you look at the digital economy numbers, it has actually fallen where cashless economy is concerned. You've just listed out all the growth factors that are down, either down or in the negative. That in itself has a story to tell. The story to tell about demonetization. So political gains that they have got out of it does not necessarily mean that the economy has gained. Joblessness, growing unemployment, the credit growth rate has fallen to a 63-year low. Banks have spoken about it. SBI has come out with its own report saying that it has hit them hard. The GDP growth rate has slowed down from being the fastest growing economy in the world. We've lost that tag to China. So the government not acknowledging all these issues is a challenge in itself. So like I've listed out the various issues that demonetization has faced, and we still don't have the numbers of the black money that they keep talking about being recovered. RBI hasn't come forward with the figures. If you look at how Make in India totally lost its entire drive initiative because of the demonetization is another thing. Rural economy, I think, was the most hit, and yet we don't talk about it. The farmers in Madhya Pradesh are also speaking about how demonetization has hit them hard, and the government has totally refused to acknowledge it, even the state government. So all the unrest that you see, whether it's with the farmers, whether it's with the unemployment, it at the end of the day is connected to the GST, to the demonetization. My apologies.
All right, to demonetization. See, and to our viewers right now, I'm opening up our phone lines. You can call us as well when the guests, when the panelists are done making their opening statements. I want voices from regular Indians who notice a difference in your workplace. If you run a business, do you notice a difference in your business? Do you believe that the economy is bouncing back? Do you believe it's going to take 6 months? That's the question I'm interested in. Let me take that same question to Santosh Mehrotra. Santosh Mehrotra, your opening arguments about demonetization. Your time starts now. Santosh Mehrotra, go ahead.
Thank you, Faye. I think it's fairly clear that 80% of all our workers are in the unorganized sector. Only 20% of our workers are in the organized sector. Now, the vast majority of those who are in the unorganized sector are dependent upon cash transactions. All transactions, whether they are inflows or outflows, take place on the basis of cash. So it is fairly well established now, the evidence has come in, that the organized sector of the economy was not so adversely impacted, but the unorganized sector of the economy, particularly agriculture, was very severely impacted by demonetization. As far as and I will come back to that in a minute, as far as the benefits are concerned, I was saying 6 months ago that one of the great benefits that is likely to possibly result are increased tax revenue to GDP, because people who were outside the tax net were now going to come into the tax net. However, the government of India has so far not released data about what additional tax revenue is going to get generated in this past financial year of 16-17, though we know that about 10 million people, 1 crore additional people have filed returns. But my last point is about the impact on agriculture, which is what you have been discussing in the last hour. We know that because of demonetization, the farming sector was very severely affected. You had already had 2 years of drought, and when you had a good year of rain in 2016, unfortunately the demonetization came, so that prices collapsed, and it is because prices collapsed, farmers who had taken loans were really hit extremely badly.
All right, so farmers were hit really badly, and I want to bring in the businessman's point of view. Ashwini Kakar, we know that business was subdued for everybody for the quarter in question. Do you believe that there's been a recovery in the business that you run with your colleagues, with your social circle? Are people talking about the fact that jobs are back, that things are looking buoyant, or is it the other way around? Do you believe, as a businessman, that India was hit hard by demonetization?
Well, my overall view is that there have been some pros and some cons.
Okay.
Okay. So there's been some good things that have come out of it and will continue to come out of it, especially around tax avoidance and, you know, terror funding being kind of squeezed a little bit and so on and so forth.
But there's still stone pelting happening in Kashmir. Okay, all right, okay.
So the crucial argument I want to make is that overall, for the whole year, you know, if you look at the GDP numbers, the numbers that have now come in for last year say that we have lost almost 1% of GDP growth. Now, in a country where the GDP is $2.25 trillion, a 1% reduction in that GDP growth amounts to $25 billion in a year. This is a huge number. And that added to last year's base would have a multiplier effect in perpetuity. So, you know, would have, for example, in the next year, a $2 billion impact of the event that happened in November last year. So these are very big numbers, and I think that needs to be borne in mind. The other thing that is very important is that interest rates should have come down dramatically because of demonetization, but they haven't come down by an iota. In the last at least 2 quarters, there's not much that has happened on the interest rate side. And just to give you one example, you know, foreigners who came to this country, they could not change more than 5,000 Indian rupees. The same foreigners were changing, for example, 4,000, 5,000, 2,000 US dollars each person. But they were not allowed to change more than 5,000 rupees. So that has a huge impact in multiple ways. And I rest my case with these few arguments.
All right, huge impact. And I also want to ask Syed. Syed, there is also a businessman who represents an entire group of businessmen. Syed, आप बताइए, क्या आपके बिजनेस में इम्प्रूवमेंट आई है पिछले 2-3 महीने से?
मैं सरकार के इस चैनल के माध्यम से सरकार से कुछ बातें करना चाहूँगा। जैसे कि किसी पोइट ने कहा था कि तुम कत्ल करो हो कि करामात करो हो। सरकार आज जो इसका इम्पैक्ट हो रहा है डिमोनेटाइजेशन का, ये जब बातें हुई और इसको जब लागू किया गया तो ये कहा गया था कि ब्लैक मनी जो बाहर से है या जो ब्लैक मनी देश के अंदर है या जो टेरर ग्रुप है जो यूज़ कर रहे हैं ऐसी नोटें, वो बंद होगी, उससे बहुत इम्पैक्ट होगा। बट ऐसा कुछ दिखाई नहीं दिया। उसका असर उल्टा ये हुआ कि जो स्मॉल स्केल इंडस्ट्री थी, जैसे कि जो मिडिल क्लास तबके के लोग अपना मैन्युफैक्चरिंग का कारोबार, ट्रेडिंग का कारोबार कर रहे थे, वहाँ पर डिमोनेटाइजेशन की बहुत बड़ी मार पड़ी। वो लोगों को आज ये पोजीशन है, मुंबई शहर में हो या पूरे इंडिया में कोई भी ऐसा सिटी हो, कोई भी फील्ड हो, उस फील्ड में वहाँ के लेबर पलायन कर चुके हैं, यहाँ से जा चुके हैं, सिटी छोड़ रहे हैं, वो काम छोड़ रहे हैं। जिनके मैन्युफैक्चरिंग फैक्ट्री में छोटी मोटी जो फैक्ट्रियाँ होती थी जहाँ 50 लेबर थे, वहाँ अब 10 लेबर बचे हैं। कैश का फ्लो है नहीं, और जो कैश के फ्लो भी थे वो सारी चीज़ें रॉ मटेरियल में, आपके पास अगर कैश फ्लो आ रहा है तो आप रॉ मटेरियल में देते हैं, तो लाइट बिल भरना है, रेंट देना है, फिर सैलरी देना है। ये सारी चीज़ों को किसी तरीके से मैनेज नहीं कर पा रहा है कोई भी, और बहुत ज़्यादा मार पड़ रही है। सरकार को इस पर ध्यान देना चाहिए। इनकी तैयारी नहीं थी, इन्होंने ये कदम उठाया, पहले तैयारी करनी चाहिए थी। जिस तरीके से आधार कार्ड से कनेक्ट करने के लिए आज कई सालों से आधार कार्ड से कनेक्ट करने के लिए देशवासियों के लिए एक बहुत बड़ा टाइम दिया गया, पहले इन लोगों को भी टाइम देना चाहिए था। हम लोगों के हिसाब से बड़ी बड़ी बातों से देश का उद्धार नहीं होगा। डिमोनेटाइजेशन अच्छी चीज़ है, मगर अच्छी चीज़ों में उसका इम्पैक्ट हो तो, अगर गरीब मारा जा रहा है, गरीब का कारोबार बंद हो रहा है, देशवासियों को तकलीफ हो रही है, तो इसका इम्पैक्ट बहुत बुरा होगा आने वाले दिनों में। और आने वाले दिनों में आप देखेंगे कि बेरोजगारी और ज़्यादा बढ़ती जाएगी।
और योर 2 मिनट्स आ रहा, ये मुझे आपसे ये पूछना है सैयद जी, आप मुझे ये बताइए कि बेरोजगारी की जो बात कर रही है आप, बस आपकी इंडस्ट्री या बिजनेस में है या अक्रॉस द बोर्ड जितने भी एसएमईज है, आपकी बातचीत तो हुई होगी, क्या हो रहा है?
आप सब जगह जाइए, आप बुनकरों के पास जाइए जो पावरलूम की फैक्ट्री से जुड़े हुए हैं या जो मैन्युफैक्चरिंग कर रहे हैं या जो दरदोजी का काम कर रहे हैं, आप उन लोगों से पूछिए, सब लोग घर जा चुके हैं। वहाँ उनके पास काम ही नहीं है। अगर काम नहीं है तो वो सीधे सीधे अपने घर जा रहा है, और वहाँ जाने के बाद भी उनको कोई काम नहीं मिल रहा है। तो ये बेरोजगारी तो बढ़ती जा रही है दिन ब दिन। अब दिखाने के लिए कुछ चेहरे और दिखाए जा रहे हैं, बट एक्चुअल में हकीकत एक अलग है, एक अलग तस्वीर होती जा रही है भारत की, उसको समझना और देखना, खास तौर पर मीडिया चैनलों के माध्यम से एक्चुअल पिक्चर भारत देश की लोगों के सामने रखनी जो ज़रूरत है आज नेशन की, वो बहुत ज़रूरी है कि एक्चुअल पोजीशन क्या चल रही है पूरे देश में उसको सामने रखा जाए।
गोपाल कृष्ण अग्रवाल, इनके जवाब दे दीजिए। The loss of job, बेरोजगारी जो which is currently in the SME sector, the small businesses who are having trouble paying their bills, employing people, keeping their offices open because of demonetization. What response does the government have for them?
देखिए लोगों को ये समझना पड़ेगा कि इतने 125 करोड़ से ऊपर की हमारे देश की जनसंख्या है. The population which is so huge, there cannot be government job or private sector jobs alone which can fill the new entrants. People will have to depend on entrepreneurship. They have to depend on self-employment.
कहा था एक कोट कहा था आपने कि पेन आपको होगा मगर लॉन्ग गेन होगा, मगर इतना पेन ना हो कि देशवासी जो आपके सरकार से जो उम्मीद लगाए बैठे थे, जो बड़े बड़े अभिभाषण सुन रहे थे कि हमको बहुत बड़ा फायदा होगा, अच्छे दिन हमारे आएंगे, हम उस अच्छे दिन का इंतजार कर रहे हैं सर. हम गवर्नमेंट के फैसले के खिलाफ नहीं, आप हमारी बात समझिए. उसका इम्प्लीमेंटेशन जिस तरीके से हुआ, उसको जिस तरीके से इम्प्लीमेंट किया गया वो गलत था.
गोपाल कृष्ण अग्रवाल जी बोल रहे थे कि यू वांट एंटरप्राइज, यू वांट एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप, बट ये तो एंटरप्रेन्योर ही है सर. गोपाल कृष्ण अग्रवाल, दिस जेंटलमैन इज एन एंटरप्रेन्योर. ही इज सेइंग ही इज हैविंग ट्रबल रनिंग हिज बिजनेस. So when you say the jobs are going to come from entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs are struggling, where will the jobs come from? Gee, go ahead.
No, that's what I'm telling. That we have given us a mudra loan of 7.45 crore people. Every loan is 50,000 to 10 lakh, and at least if one establishment happens, it will give at least employment to 4 to 5 people. That's one thing. Then another thing is that we have given startup, stand up 2.5 lakh loans to the rural and agricultural
लोन की बातें आप कर रहे हैं, अच्छी बात है, ठीक है, लोगों को फायदा हुआ होगा, बट आप जमीन पे उतरिए, आप अपने लोगों को जमीन पे उतारिए और पता करवाइए कि एक्चुअल पोजीशन क्या है इंडिया में और लोग किस तरीके से सरवाइव कर रहे हैं. आप एक भारतीय आम नागरिक की जो एक छोटा कारोबार करने वाला है, आप उसके दर्द को समझिए. दर्द को इतना मत बढ़ाइए कि वो अपना दम तोड़ दे, जिस तरीके से किसान दम तोड़ रहा है.
Well, let me just bring in some numbers here. I have with me the diversified industry. This is the domestic fund-based outstanding. There's negative for telecommunication, negative...
Let me answer him.
Okay, go ahead.
Give me 1 minute.
Sure,
the important thing is, I have not finished. The issue is that the agriculture sector has shown a growth. Ultimately, from where the employment comes, we have done, if you look into the macroeconomic parameters, all have improved. Inflation has come down to 2.6% today. If the inflation from double digit to 2.6%,
अग्रवाल जी, हमारी रिक्वेस्ट वही है, आंकड़ों से उतर कर आइए जमीन पर. प्रैक्टिकली आंकड़ों पे बात नहीं होगी, देश डेवलप नहीं करेगा.
Let Mr. Agarwal. So Mr. Agarwal, you're saying inflation has come down.
जमीन पे कैसे बात करेंगे?
जमीन पे आप पता करिए लोगों की पोजीशन क्या है, एजेंसीज के थ्रू.
नहीं, सुन लीजिए उनकी बात, and then we have people who will rebut.
मैं आंकड़ों में ही जवाब दूंगा ना.
हाँ, अब आप बोल दीजिए. You're talking about inflation has come down. You talked about mudra loans. Mr. Agarwal, go ahead. Mr. Agarwal, go ahead.
Then if you see how the macroeconomic parameters are, now the fiscal deficit is under control to 3.5%. Revenue deficit will be surplus. Ultimately, the question between debt and investment is a question how revenue deficit is managed. If you talk of economics, we will talk of economics. If you talk of other things, ultimately we have created infrastructure. The way roads, 131 kilometers of road is being constructed on a daily basis in rural areas. That was 30 kilometers. It has increased from 30 to 131 kilometers. The road main highways were being constructed at 30 kilometers a day. Who will benefit out of this? Insurance cover, Pradhan Mantri Jeevan Suraksha Yojana, Pradhan Mantri.
Okay, now I want to open up this panel. Mr. Gopal Krishna Agarwal, I'm reading out of what is called the SBI Eco Wrap. The SBI Eco Wrap SBI being the biggest PSU bank, the biggest bank in the country, government bank puts out an economic wrap where it puts out its data on what the market looks like. This eco wrap of SBI is titled GDP slowdown, pre or post demonetization. That is what it called. It actually points out that agriculture is expected to, and not through GDP, but through something called GVA. Viewers, GVA is the gross value added. How much value have we added as a country? It is expecting agriculture to come down, industry to come down, manufacturing to come down, electricity to come down. Construction is in the negative, according to SBI. Trade, hotels, transport to come down, real estate to come down. Now, I don't know where Mr. Agarwal is getting his numbers from. But if we look at, for example, this is how much banks are lending. And if businesses have to do well, they have to borrow from banks and do business. That's how business functions. There is no indication whatsoever in this business borrowing to tell us that the market is getting better. It is actually looking like it's getting worse. I don't want to call out numbers because they're difficult to understand on television, but they're all here and we can email them to Gopal Krishna Agarwal. Sarkari bank ne bola hai. Very good. And I just want to open this up now to the rest of the panel. Priyanka Chaturvedi.
Area of worry.
It is very worrying, Mr. Gopal Krishna Agarwal, and our phone lines are buzzing. We'll patch people through. Priyanka Chaturvedi, go ahead.
Inherited.
Priyanka Chaturvedi, go ahead. Has the BJP inherited demonetization? I think we're getting a little confused about the arguments.
Mr. Agarwal.
No. We have inherited the bank problem.
Mr. Agarwal was making a point about Mudra loans and how they've made it easier. Please, Mr. Agarwal, please don't find excuses for your failures. You have not shown any kind of visionary growth or visionary governance or visionary model that would take India towards a growth trajectory.
No, see, Priyanka, focus on demonetization.
Mudra loans for small businesses without... Yes, I'm focusing on demonetization, and please understand demonetization came in as a, that was one of the reasons that the Prime Minister quoted, that it would take India towards growth trajectory if they move towards a cashless digital economy. Let's not forget that. Now, we were questioning them about creating new businesses. He was talking about entrepreneurship. Now, the current entrepreneurs are jobless, are facing a huge mess, have had to, let go of many of their staff. And he's talking about providing Mudra loans. Here's an entrepreneurial setup, a small business, which was wanting to move into a second phase of growth, which has come to a standstill just because of the demonetization. And you're talking about Mudra loans and we are going to create more businesses. The existing businesses are facing an existential challenge, and we are talking about Mudra loans anyway. That's another part. Then he talks about how GDP is positive and everything's hunky-dory. So all the current account deficit that he talks about has also benefited because of the falling crude oil prices, the benefit of which the people of the country have not received. So there are many factors. When he talks about economics, when he talks about agriculture, agriculture has not done well because the government has supported the farmers. Agriculture has done well because they had good monsoons this year. And unfortunately, the farmers are protesting simply because of the demonetization that they brought in and the government not willing to buy their produce. So this is what is happening. If he wants to talk about economics, we can talk economics. But these fudge data does not help.
I want to bring in now Chandrashekhar Naini, who joins us at this point. Chandrashekhar Naini, Mr. Gopal Krishna Agarwal mentioned that inflation is down to 2.18%. This was the last number. It would be very worrying if our GDP number was going down and inflation was going up. So obviously inflation is also going to go down. Chandrashekhar Naini, where do you stand on the argument that demonetization has hit us hard? Are you for or against? Yes or no?
Yeah. No, I am not agreeing with that factor that demonetization has hit us hard. We have to realize why was demonetization done. There was a horrendous proportion of black money in our economy. There was a terrorist funding going on at full blown. This needed to be corrected. Also, India needed to move into the next century of the digital age. These three factors actually pushed the government to take this bold step, which, by the way, no earlier government, actually no Congress government has ever taken the bold step, although it was needed many a times in past. The bold step was taken, the effects were seen, and what we are seeing now, let me compare it with the situation. Black money, even Congress had agreed, black money is like a cancer to our economy. The cancer has to be corrected. there are only one or two ways in which cancer can be corrected. One of the ways is chemotherapy. Demonetization is like chemotherapy. Think of it in this way. If there is a tumor of cancer and if the tumor is cut, definitely the weight of the body reduces. That is what has happened to the GDP. What we are talking about, the loss of 1% in the GDP. By the way, it is 1% and not 2% as Manmohan Singh and Amartya Sen had predicted. The prediction didn't come true. The 1% drop is actually the tumor being removed. I also must tell you, the sectors which have been hit by demonetization are mainly real estate sector, which is actually having a lot of black money transaction in that sector. Second sector which has been hit is mining, which again is a lot of black money in the sector. Third sector which has been hit is the unorganized sector, wherein unorganized sector, everybody knows in this country that there is no kind of proper accounting in the unorganized sector. So definitely the direction is because of the black money which has been curtailed. And that's why many people are crying that demonetization is hitting us hard, because many times they were doing transactions which were not affecting anyone. And this is now, since the transactions have come into the real and proper legal era, government's tax revenues will go up, and those are the effects which we will see in the coming quarter.
All right.
That's my prediction.
Okay. So I have a couple of things to ask about the points that were just made by Mr. Naini. One, yes. Are we talking black money or cash money? See, because if somebody was buying vegetables out of cash, that is not necessarily black money. Yes. We were using cash for transactions. Point number two, you said terror funding. Yeah. Has terror funding actually come down? Yes. Has stone pelting in Kashmir actually come down? That's a question we have to ask. No. Also, you said the effects of demonetization are easily visible. We do not know from the RBI how much money has been collected. We do not know how much black money has been taken out of the system. We also do not know how much hawala money went out of the country. And I have, I have reason to understand that a lot of people now are not holding their black money anymore. They're moving it out of the country through hawala routes immediately because they never know when this will happen again. Mr. Ashwini Kakar, here is the problem. If we say everybody suffering was corrupt to begin with, so they deserve suffering. Do you agree?
See, Mr. Naini himself in his own arguments have said that most of the sectors have virtually vanished. You know, if mining has vanished, real estate has vanished, textiles, leather. I mean, we can add to your list, Mr. Naini, and explain that, you know, half the economy, the small and medium enterprise, the cash-based rural economy, the unbanked, the illiterate sections of society, and so on, have really suffered hugely. We fully agree that, you know, there has been, an attempt to curb corruption that has been partially successful. I mean, quite successful, I must say. But can that, is it strong enough to stop corruption from starting again? Which is what is a big question mark. In any case, the amount of credit card transactions has gone up by 6 times. And I am afraid that as a country, we cannot afford credit card transactions to go up by 6 times, because the cost of each credit card transaction in terms of money taken out of the country by Visa and MasterCard and all these companies is 2% of whatever is spent on the credit cards. So I think, you know, we have to review this whole thing in its totality. I think in terms of, reducing tax avoidance, very good. I think this is something that will long-term have an effect. But like I said before, we have lost, in your own admission, you said that we have lost more than 1% of GDP growth. 1% of our country's GDP growth, 1% is $25 billion a year. So that is what we have lost in the past year. And going forward, the multiplier effect on that will be at least $2 billion per year in the coming years to come.
Right, and I want to ask Syed this side. इन्होंने कहा कि जो भी corrupt business करते थे उन्हीं को मतलब ठेस पहुंची अभी.
जैसे इन्होंने कहा कि कीमोथेरेपी देना जरूरी है, सर ने अभी कहा, तो कीमोथेरेपी का एक सिस्टम है. कीमोथेरेपी अगर दूसरे पार्ट पे दे दिया जाएगा ना, तो कैंसर दूसरी जगह और फैल जाएगा. तो सही जगह पे कीमोथेरेपी होनी चाहिए.
Analogy of chemotherapy was in fact was not right, because what we did was actually chop stuff off, which was not chemotherapy. I want to stop using that medical analogy altogether. I think it's misleading. Pragnesh Rai is the owner of SamBar Pub and Kitchen. He represents restaurateurs right now. Pragnesh, I want to understand from you, has the restaurant business, and let me point out one thing. Real estate, construction, leather, mining, restaurants, these are massive employers. Lots of people work in these sectors and lots of unofficial labor works in these sectors. And if they get let off, who's going to employ these people? Someone who works on a construction site is not qualified or skilled to work anywhere else. Where will he go? I want to ask Pragnesh this question. Do you think that demonetization has hit the restaurant business hard? What has it costed us in terms of jobs?
In terms of demonetization, starting November 8th, it was a harsh 3 months. But if we speak layoffs or people being let go, it has taken us a hit. But 6 months down the line now, we've slightly come out of it. Yes, there were few initial troubled months, but as we've moved on, things have regularized, business has started to come in again. Just your modes of payments have increased, and smaller vendors who literally we procure from, they are facing issues in terms of getting themselves organized. So I feel that's where demonetization has taken restaurant business has taken a hit in demonetization in these small terms. Business-wise, the first 3 months was really slow. December being one of the peak times of restaurant business was also on the slowest slide if you compare it to the last 2 years. But as months have gone by, 6 months, 7th month down the line, it seems to be getting regularized. We haven't personally let go of people. It's all a matter of a little bit of faith that is required in the government and in things getting regularized. There were initial tough times, but I think we've conveniently come out of it at this point.
Okay, come out of this at this point. That's heartening to know. I want to bring in Gopal Krishna Agarwal, Priyanka Chaturvedi. It's Santosh Mehrotra. I'm sorry, I didn't come back to you. Santosh Mehrotra, the argument, and Ashwini Kakar is making an excellent point. 1% of the GDP is not as tiny as it sounds. When the media says 1% of the GDP, it's a lot of money.
Of course, it's a lot of money, and it's unfortunately a lot of money of those who can least afford it, because the sector, as Mr. Naini himself was rightly pointing out, that was most impacted were those who were in the unorganized sector, meaning those who are self-employed or micro or small and medium enterprises who operate on the basis of cash. And now, so we have to see what is the juncture at which demonetization hit the economy and hit these relatively poorer people. We have already seen that job growth had dramatically been falling over the last 5 years. I think there is plenty of evidence to that effect from the Labour Bureau data based on very large samples, and that is indisputable. This is point one. This was the context on the 8th of November. And when demonetization came, please note that those few people those who were in jobs, who were in the unorganized sector, they were let go. Now, it may well be that with liquidity returning, those people will return to jobs. But I think what we need to recognize is that the growth rate has been lower this year by of gross value added by 1.5 percentage points, and that's the context provided for the falling number of growth in jobs at a time when the number of young people who are joining the labor force in the last 5 years has been growing at 5 million per annum. You see, in the period from 2004-05 to 11-12, the economy was growing fast, jobs were growing fast, and fewer people, only 2 million people per annum were joining the labor force. As a result, real wages rose and poverty fell. In the last 5 years, on the contrary, you've seen that because non-agricultural jobs have not been growing, but the number of people joining the labor force has been growing by about 5 million per annum. Despite the fact that inflation has come down, the point is that nominal wages are not rising, and therefore real wages are not rising. People do not, people go on and on about how inflation has fallen. If inflation has fallen, the real issue is, have nominal wages risen faster than inflation? No. Which is the reason, and why is that? Because jobs are not growing. And demonetization came at that juncture. This is what people need to understand.
All right, so we're going to open up the phone lines right now for our viewers, but I just want to bring in Gopal Krishna Agarwal and Priyanka Chaturvedi on this one question. The fact that there is a lot of argument about the fact that we're slowing down. Gopal Krishna Agarwal, Priyanka Chaturvedi, we must take a moment to talk about terror funding and to talk about stone pelting in Kashmir, because that was one of the things that demonetization was going to hit at. Have we solved the problem, Gopal Krishna Agarwal? Has terror funding actually come down? Has stone pelting actually come down?
No, everything what is happening to economy or the country cannot be linked to demonetization. Every good thing cannot be linked. We cannot link every good thing that it is because of demonetization. Same way, every negative aspect of the economy or there are issues which are concerning the
of demonetization. This was one of the reasons
of demonetization.
This was one of the reasons why we did it.
It was not an isolated steps. Demonetization, demonetization was several issues. You see in the Benami Property Act, you see in the income disclosure schemes, there is special SIT was set up, bilateral treaties with Mauritius, everything. There are so many issues that we are trying to tackle the corruption and black money issue.
कितने लोग पकड़े गए और कितने लोगों को जेल भेजा SIT ने इतने दिनों में?
Leaders, where they have tried to unearth the terror funding. No, liquid currency in the economy was one of the
कार्रवाई हुई, बेनामी जायदादें कितनी जब्त हो गई सर?
It was not the
कितनी जब्त हुई, क्या कार्रवाई हुई?
ये जो बेनामी प्रॉपर्टी वगैरह
एक बड़ा आदमी किसी का ऐसा नाम नहीं आया हम सामने इतने दिनों में.
So here Gopal Krishna Agarwal, I respect everything you're saying, but you're not answering my question. My specific question was about terror funding. My specific question was about stone pelting. Please tell me, have we managed to stop terror funding and stone pelting?
I'll tell you.
Yes.
What was happening was that the liquid currency or the currency in flow was being used by terrors, and fake currency was being used by Pakistan to influx in our country. Those at least have been checked. Now there are liquid currency has been reduced. There is a fake currency issue of fake currency has been reduced. Ultimately, terrorism is a big step, a big issue which cannot only be tackled through demonetization. NIA has done raids on 28 centers of Hurriyat, where through even they were funding terrorism through banking channels also.
Okay. Priyanka Chaturvedi
was helping in terror funding.
Priyanka
Liquid currency was one of the issue. Banking channels were also being used. There was NGOs
I don't know if any of the
panelists have to be tackled. We are doing it.
Any of the panelists
yes,
would even be convinced by what Mr. Agarwal is saying. The facts speak for themselves, and we are seeing how a growing unrest has only grown larger in proportion post demonetization, and it doesn't just end at Kashmir. We also have an internal Naxalite movement. We just had our own, army men, I'm sorry, not army men, but our BSF Jawans being shot at and killed by these Naxalites. So when we have a situation like this happening, not just coming from Pakistan, but internally, these are questions that the Bharatiya Janata Party needs to be honest about and should be answering. So saying that we have managed to clamp down and not everything can be linked to demonetization, I would just like to remind Mr. Agarwal that we did not link demonetization to terrorism. It was the Prime Minister who promised us a terrorism-free India post-demonetization. So these are some questions that they will need to obviously answer. And again, they don't have an answer, and I'm sure every other panelist is absolutely not convinced with what the BJP is saying as far as terrorism is concerned and addressing its problems.
सर आप टेररिज्म को खत्म कीजिए, पूरा देश आपके साथ है, बट जो सिचुएशन इंडिया के पीपल फेस कर रही है, जो स्मॉल स्केल इंडस्ट्री के लोग फेस कर रहे हैं, उसके लिए क्या है, उसका रास्ता क्या है? आप टेररिज्म को खत्म कीजिए, टेररिस्ट फंडर को खत्म कीजिए, सब कीजिए, सारा देश आपका साथ देगा, बट जो बातें आपने की थी और भी चीजों के लिए, वो चीजों का क्या हुआ? कितने लोग पकड़े गए, कितने पे SIT जांच हुई, कितने लोग जेल गए?
That's a good question.
कितने लोग बेनामी जायदादें आपने जब्त की?
ऐसा किसने कहा?
कई सौ करोड़ की शादियां हुई नोटबंदी के दौरान, क्या उनके ऊपर कार्रवाई हुई?
I want to bring in a caller right now. Murlidhar is on the phone line from Bangalore. Murlidhar? We can hear you.
Yes,
Go ahead.
Yes. You see, I agree with that Mr. Economist, Mr. Mehrotra saying.
Yes.
Totally, the juncture at which it was brought in was not acceptable. It has taken the money out of 100 crores of people for a period of many months just to bring out black money from few lakhs of people who have somehow managed to hold it too. Now, what is the outcome of that, we do not know. But the impact of that we know. Today's inflation ratings on vegetable sector showing is not at all matching to the ground reality, what is happening. The purchase capacity has been taken out of the businesses, SMEs. As a result, lot of unemployment has happened. When people are unable to buy, naturally there is no demand creation, no credit offtake, and you have to take it as a toll on account of demonetization. But the morality or moral stamina with which it has been done has to be appreciated to the extent, yes, terror funding have been stunned for few months at least, but we are not sure that it will come up again. It is a question of printing a duplicate note. It can happen anytime on any notes. People have printed US dollars also. The question now is how government is going to open up the gates of money by taking up huge infrastructure projects and increasing the inflow and increasing the employment.
Right, and Mr. Mudita is right. I also want to put out one more thing that nobody has mentioned up until now. Nearly 180 people died during the demonetization process. Several of them were senior citizens. Several of them were senior citizens who were standing in line. No one has acknowledged these deaths. Nobody has even treated this like it was a thing that actually happened. Somebody needs to acknowledge these people. What happened to those families? Has the government gotten in touch? Have we compensated in any way? Have we even sent a condolence letter saying that we're sorry you lost a loved one? Has there anything that has been done? Gopal Krishna Agarwal, do you want to answer that question?
They are all unfortunate, but you cannot link all deaths to the demonetization. Ultimately, there are some positive steps also. If you see, the people have supported wholeheartedly the demonetization.
You're not
process.
answering my question.
The people, what?
No, see, okay, let me see. I know, okay, Gopal Krishna Agarwal, let me make one thing clear. I'm not questioning the fact that people have supported demonetization. They still do. Do people want terror to stop? Yes. Do people want black money to stop? Yes. Do we want people who take money out of our country into the Swiss bank accounts to be caught? Do we want that money to be brought back? Yes. Do we want rich, corrupt businessmen to be taxed, to pay their income tax like the rest of us? Yes. We are asking now about hard numbers. We do not want to know about emotion. Do people support? Do people not support? Doesn't matter anymore. It has been 6 months. You yourself on this very channel, on this very show, 6 months ago you said give it 6 months, you will be able to see the impact. Now give me the impact in numbers. I want the impact in numbers.
No, what I want to tell you. Yes, I will tell you what happens is, if you want to catch the corrupt people, if you want to eliminate the black money from the system, you have to establish an audit trail on the business transaction. Demonetization has been a major step towards creating an audit trail of the money which moves through the banking channels, which moves through the business transaction. Unless we have sent more than 90 lakh tax notices. Why? Because
business मर जाएगा, trail रह जाएगी सर.
Establish the audit trail for the black.
आज भी जाली करेंसी पकड़ी जा रही है.
नहीं, देखिए.
आज भी जाली करेंसी पकड़ी जा रही है.
Right. नहीं, अगर you have to decide whether
Suresh,
black money and corruption is a bigger
let me point out to you, I'm still reading from the domestic fund. Outstanding engineering is down 25%, petrochem is down 15%, textiles is down 5%, trade is down 1.9%, other infrastructure is down 9%, roads and ports are down 15%, telecommunication down 12%. This is how much these sectors are borrowing. And if they're not borrowing, it means they're not conducting business. Suresh is on the phone line from Tamil Nadu. Suresh, go ahead.
Ma'am, अभी आप बोल रहे थे कि various sectors is down by so much and so. Hello?
Yes, we can hear you, Suresh. Go ahead.
Yeah, various sectors is down by so much. So I think we are going through a very difficult phase. First, the demonetization. Second, the GST jo aane wala hai. But I think it is a kind of a bull which takes 4 steps backward to race. I think, in coming quarters, after demonetization and GST put together, the last quarter, the final quarter of the 2017 will be very good. मैं एक आम आदमी हूँ, मुझे पता है क्या तकलीफ हुई थी. हाँ, हफ्ते भर तकलीफ हुई थी राशन पाने के लिए. सबसे बड़ा इम्पैक्ट डीमोनेटाइजेशन का ये है कि लोगों की मंशा, माइंडसेट, जो कच्चे का बोलते हैं ना, पक्का कच्चा, कच्चा बोले तो ब्लैक मनी, वो चेंज हो गया है. And the GST will curb down the generation of black money. Even the small sector, छोटा व्यापारी, मैं कोयम्बतूर से हूँ, 60% ऑफ स्पिनिंग मिल कोयम्बतूर में है, बाजू में तिरपुर है, और सबसे बड़ा कपड़े का मार्केट है. मैडम, यहाँ पे लेबर नहीं है आज. और डीमोनेटाइजेशन के बाद महीने 1.5 महीने के बाद यार्न का प्राइसेस ऑल टाइम हाई टच हुआ था आफ्टर 2011. कपास का प्राइस 45,000 पर कंडी नीचे नहीं आया है.
तो लेबर कहाँ गया सुरेश? वेयर इज द लेबर गॉन फ्रॉम तिरपुर? व्हाट आर दोस पीपल डूइंग?
लेबर नहीं है. यूपी, बिहार, ओडिशा से जो लेबर आते थे पिछले 6 महीने में लेबर नहीं आ रहे हैं. उनको उधर अच्छा पे मिल रहा है. और अनऑर्गेनाइज सेक्टर, टी सेक्टर, ऊटी का जो टी सेक्टर है बाजू में, उनको जो लेबर कम मिलता था, सबका बैंक अकाउंट खुल गया है. जितना मिलना चाहिए 300 रुपए 400 रुपए पर डे, उतना मिल रहा है. जो बड़े बड़े व्यापारी हैं,
I want to bring in Ashwini Kakar. This labor is missing. I don't know if it's fair to assume that they've left because they're getting better jobs back in UP and Bihar.
I think the job situation is going to be a very big issue in this country, and I think that is going to be actually the single largest driver, and I think that is where the whole country needs to focus on. Every entrepreneur needs to focus on job creation. Every person in bureaucracy, in politics,
so Mr.
everywhere
Agarwal's argument
needs to
of
focus.
mudra loans going to prospective entrepreneurs, do you not believe that's a solution?
I don't think those are solutions. I think, overall, I think if we focus on the subject at hand, which is demonetization, I think, like I said before, while some good has come out of it, and possibly more good will come out of it,
yes.
But I think on balance, we also need to look at growth, and that growth is the only thing that will provide, employment, will provide other things. And the 25 billion that has been lost, I think if we can find other ways now to
bring it back,
to increase the GDP substantially. We were the #1 growing market in the world, and now we've been beaten again by China, and we've lost our #1 position and become #2.
Right. I want to bring in Gautam, who's on the phone line from Vadodara. Gautam, go ahead.
Yeah, hi, Faye. First of all, let me compliment you for taking up a burning issue. Everybody, you speak to anybody, lower middle class or upper middle class or middle class, everybody is suffering because of this thing. We don't care. We don't care about what exactly is happening as far as all these figures are concerned. Mr. Gopal Agarwal here, okay, he's giving certain figures. But what about the ground realities? Can anybody see what's happening? Everybody is suffering. We have to cut down all our... I am a retired person. I had to cut down everywhere just to see, just to meet two ends, So I personally feel that please forget about all these so-called figures, come to the ground reality. And we were asked to wait for 6 months from December. Now what is happening? It's June. And yesterday I went to the bank to pick up some money. There's no money.
There's no money. All right. So I've run out of time, but I will promise you one thing. Like I said 6 months ago, that we're not going to forget, and we will continue to track all of the movement. We will continue to track all of the movement through GST as well, because this affects jobs. If we don't have jobs, we can't buy food. If we can't buy food, yes, inflation is going to come down. That's automatic. And the truth is, we are going through a job crisis. Look at what's happening to the IT industry. Look at what's happening to textiles, to leather, to the restaurant business, to those, for no fault of the government, I'll say, to those restaurants that were situated on the highways, which lost their liquor licenses, who had to let go of people. This is a serious crisis. And on this channel, we put this crisis on top top priority. Jobs are a problem. There are various things that are adding to the job crisis, and we're going to keep a very close eye on it. I invite you at home to get in touch. My contact details are on your screen. If you're facing a challenge of any kind, if you believe there is a problem, if you're retired, if you're a homemaker, if you're middle class, if you're upper class, get in touch. These are stories we have to tell. We have to bring them to the notice of our government so changes can be made. There's no reason to suffer in silence. We will tell your stories on this channel. Thanks for watching.